Hello! Earlier today, I launched this challenge on Twitter. As you can see, what we have here is a grid of square cells that are progressively growing, either from one edge to the opposite one, or from one corner to the opposite one. They are also changing color, so during one iteration, we have black squares growing. During the next one, we have white squares growing. Some of you may remember I coded something similar recently, but it wasn't with growing squares, it was with rotating ones. However, the techniques used are exactly the same, both when it comes to changing the direction of motion and when it comes to changing the color of the squares that are animated. So let's see that demo. As you can see here, what we do after each iteration, we rotate the board. So 90 degrees after the first one, 90 more after the second one, so that's 180, 270, then 360, which is equal to 0, so we've come full circle. So that's the switch rotation animation that we have here. And then we have the switch inversion animation, which basically goes from no filter to inversion filter. So no filter during the first iteration, inversion filter during the second one. No filter third, filter fourth. So that's how it goes. We have this switch inversion. Now let's see for our demo for today. Let's see that. Okay, we start with a number of squares per edge. So that's going to be 16. The total number of squares is this thing squared, this number squared. We have a wrapper. Inside this wrapper we have our grid. And here we loop. And we create our cells. Okay, we also want to pass to the CSS this number of squares per edge. So we pass it as a custom property on the root. Okay, now our grid, we want it to be a grid. So we set display grid on it. And we also want to set a template for this grid. So let's say our template is going to be repeat, and we use this number n here and something like 2 m's for the edge length. So now we set our grid to the template and we interpolate it so that we don't risk SAS trying to do the division, which would be stupid, but well. Okay, so now that we've done this, okay, template. Now we set a background on our cells just so that we can see the grid, but now we can't distinguish one from another. So let's set a transform scale, let's say something like 0.5 so we can see them. Okay, so having done this, we move on and create an animation. Keyframes, grow to, set a transform, and we might grow it all the way up to 1, but the thing is we're going to make it a bit bigger because Firefox may have issues with still showing lines in between the cells, even though they should touch each other in theory. Now something else we want to set here is an animation duration, let's say something like 2 seconds. Now let's set our animation, and this is grow, that animation duration, infinite. And now we should have these growing, but the thing is they'll be growing from 0.5 size, so let's make this closer to 0. Okay, but we don't want them to grow at the same time, so we want to also pass a progress custom property to the CSS. So this progress custom property, let's call it k, is 0 initially, and then we have a loop. So sorry about that. For I starting from, let's say 2 in this case, going all the way up to n and including n, and we increment it. and now we set nth child plus I here, and we set the progress k to be I over n. Okay, now that we have the progress, we can set a custom timing function, which is going to be a cubic function, and the first x is k, the first y is 0, the second x is calc 1 minus k, and the final y is 1. Okay, so this should do it, and it does, as you can see. Now, the next thing we do is just copy this animation and paste it here for the grid. We'll be needing it twice. So we do a switch, and the first one is a switch inversion, the second one is going to be a switch rotate, and this is going to be changing at 50%, and we don't have a transform here, we have a filter, invert all the way up to 1, full inversion. Let's also set a background, because otherwise it's not really going to work. And now let's set the animation, and this is a switch inversion, and we'll be having twice that animation duration, infinite, and the timing functions is a steps one. Okay, this is my timing function, and this should now work. Okay, and it does, as you can see. Good. Now, on the body, let's also set display grid, place content center, and for my wrapper, okay, let's set an outline solid 4 pixels red, just so that we can see the outline. Okay, this looks good. Now the thing is, we also want to have a rotation here, so rotate, and what we use here is 1 full turn, and the number of stages we want here is going to be 8. So now we just copy this first animation, and at each stage of the process we're going to have a different rotation. So we're going to multiply with that number, and here again we'll be using it in the steps function. So now we're also going to have a rotation, as you can see here. Okay, so what we want to do is just clip this wrapper such that we always have a square, nice square right there. So we set clip path, and we use the inset function, and this is going to be a calc, which we inset by half the circumradius, which is the distance between the center and that corner down there, or on the other directions, and the middle of that edge, which is the distance between the center, is the in radius. So half the difference between the circumradius and the in radius. Actually, the difference between the circumradius and the in radius, half the difference between the diameters. So that's going to be 50% times 1 minus 1 over, and I need to interpolate the stuff, 1 over square root of 2, and I also need compass for this, because otherwise it's not going to work. So I need to import compass. So having done this, we should have the whole thing clipped, and we do. One more thing we want to do is round the corners by something like 5 pixels. So yeah, this should do it. As you can see, we now have rounded corners there. So we have the whole animation thing. And one more thing I want to do here is have a filter on drop shadow. Let's say something like 2 pixels, 2 pixels, 5 pixels, RGBA, and we use black, semi-transparent, and this should do it now. Now, one more thing I want to do here, because sometimes you see we have a scroll bar showing. Let's do overflow hidden, and that should take care of the problem. And we have the nice result we've been looking for. So yeah, this is it. This is what I wanted to show you for today. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and if you have and you want me to be able to do more stuff in the future, please consider supporting my work. Donations are suspended for now, but you can still make this kitty very happy by getting her something off her Amazon wishlist. There will be links in the description. Or you can at least share this to show the world what can be done with CSS these days, because honestly, I think it's pretty damn cool. In any event, thanks for watching.